This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hour number 2 begins here on a Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves. He is Marc Malusis. I am Ben Stevens, filling in today for Stormy Bonantoni and Jonathan Von Tobel. But you'll see them in just about another hour, live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas here on VSiN on this Wednesday. We are very pleased as we start this second hour to take a look at a signature event early on the PGA Tour calendar. The AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am from one of the great sites in all of golf along the California coast this week. And to help us preview everything that we need to know, we now head to the Progressive guest line. Neil Parker, sports betting analyst for Covers, joins us here on Money Moves. Neil, we appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for being here on the day before the Pebble Beach Pro-Am begins.
Hey, my pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity and love talking some golf. And it's a great time to sort of get into the golf season now. The Super Bowl's behind us, Players Championship coming up, Florida Swing, then we still have the Genesis in California. Next thing you know, it'll be the Masters.
We're going to be there very, very soon. Yes, we certainly are.
Yeah,
so, Neil, as we start to look... Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, when you look at the Pro-Am here at Pebble Beach, how deep do you think win contention goes?
I don't think it goes that deep. Historically, in our signature events we've seen over the past 2 years, there's really only been one long shot. And that was Chris Kirk, right, in the very first century. Otherwise, it's typically been an event dominated by major contenders and players who have risen to the occasion consistently in these high-quality field, deep field events where, the cream of the crop typically does rise to the top.
So, Neil, you see those numbers right there. Scotty Scheffler, a 3-1 price, even 10 cents shy of that, plus 290 on DraftKings. The second best number is Rory McIlroy at 13-1. I always find it fascinating, and maybe to catch up the casual golf bettor on how the odds board looks entering a new PGA Tour week and a newer PGA Tour season. What is the approach to betting the board when you see Scotty Scheffler at such a short price to win the Pebble Beach Pro-Am?
So I think you've just got to be comfortable with either betting Scotty Scheffler because he is going to win probably 6 times this season. So if you're ready to bet Scotty Scheffler this week, maybe you amp up your unit size to 2 or 3 units on Scotty. And then you'd have to look further down the board. My approach this week is to attack more of the secondary and third tier in the odds and have multiple players at similar stake than overloading on Scotty Scheffler. Can he win this week? Absolutely. Is he a threat to win? Probably. Is he the best player on tour? Absolutely. So I personally didn't go that way this week, but it wouldn't be a bad strategy if you wanted to allocate a lot of your bankroll this week, your assigned unit sizes, how much you want to bet. If you want to push a lot of it to Scotty Scheffler, I think that is a strategy that could work out for you this week. It's not my approach.
Well, Neil, let's talk about your approach. Where did you allocate? And what golfers do you think are coming in that play this course well, or their games are rounding into form going into this tournament?
Yeah, Pebble Beach takes accuracy off the tee. It's a second shot golf course. We know that. So I look to Siwoo Kim at plus right around 2,800 and Russell Henley right around plus 3,000 is my top 2 targets. Siwoo's absolutely dialed with his irons. He got a new driver to begin the season. He's piercing fairways, coming off the T2 at the Farmers, T3 last week. And I really think he could have won last week if one of those Sunday putts would have fell. I mean, he was right there after a tough start in day 1. And then Henley is just, this course suits him perfectly. He was T5 last year. He's had top 20s in 10 straight events, and his tee to green metrics are off the charts. And he's also one of these guys that really is got a clean short game. Unlike what I just mentioned about Siwoo Kim, who maybe can get a little bit wonky over a 10-footer, Russell Henley rolls them in. So I like those two quite a bit at the top of the board. And those are the 2 guys that I targeted early, and I'm going to stick with. And I think they'll also be quite popular plays when those DraftKings numbers are released, the DFS ownerships and the betting handle and ticket counts are come to be announced shortly. So I like those 2.
Neil Parker of Covers joining us here on this Wednesday on Money Moves on the Progressive Guest Line. Make sure you are following Neil at Neil Parker Bets on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. And of course, his picks are out on covers.com for the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Neil, always as you go through a week at Pebble, along mile 17 on the California coast, we think sunshine, we think beautiful, and of course the landscape often provides. But here in February, sometimes it could be a little damp, a little rainy, a little windy at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. What is the forecast this week for the golfers out there in this signature event?
I think you'll see some toques out there. I think it's going to be a little chilly, especially for the early tee times. But so far, the weather conditions are quite favorable. Could see some later gusts of wind in the afternoon as golfers are finishing up their rounds on Thursday through Saturday. Round 4 could be a little dicey. Rain, wind is in the forecast, but obviously, like sports betting, things can change. So we could see Sunday play a factor weather-wise. And famously, 2 years ago, this event was cut short after 3 rounds. Wyndham Clark shot a course record 60 on Saturday to win by a stroke, and that was it. I don't anticipate that's going to be the case this week. I don't think anyone's shooting a course record, number one. And number two, I do think that we're going to have pretty favorable conditions giving the California coast in February, as you alluded to. So I think we're set up for a pretty scoreable week, and weather maybe plays a little bit of a factor on the back nine on Sunday.
Neil, I want to ask you about a golfer that you wrote up on for Covers, and that is Jason Day, who's down the odds board a little bit more dialed in, has battled injuries, clearly got off to a great start to his career. Where is Jason Day right now going into this weekend?
So Jason Day is a Pebble Beach phenom. He has 9 career top 10s here, has flirted with victory multiple times. So my only concern right now with him is that he didn't exactly light it up on the short game his last time out at the Farmers Insurance. Otherwise, he checks all the boxes. His accuracy, and then especially recently, his approach game has been particularly dialed to start the season. So you pair his course history with his improved iron play into greens, and as long as that short game doesn't kind of let him down like it did in the Farmers, I think he's going to be right there. I love him at a long number, and he was one of the first golfers that I identified as a strong value early on Sunday as I was prepping to watch the Waste Management last week. So love Jason Day. I think he's another player that's going to be incredibly popular, and he checks all those boxes because historically he's been an excellent player around the greens with his short game, scrambling ability, and then his putting also proven track record there. So if he tidies that up, he's going to be right there on Sunday afternoon too.
Jason Day, 46-1 right now to win the Pebble Beach Pro-Am outright. Neil, also looking at a guy who was always consistent in Sepp Straka further down the board at 63-1. Of course, Neil, those are some big long shot hits, potentially to be the champion at Pebble Beach this week. But is there an approach of looking at those guys you think are going to have success this week and betting a finishing position, a top 10, a top 20 on some of those longer prices maybe to win outright?
Yeah, I think it's good bankroll management. There's a couple of options to complement your outright picks, be it an each way market where, you've got half your bet on the outright, half your bet on a player to finish within 8 places, top 5 places, etc. But also you can move down and do it exclusive with the outright bet paired with a top 20, a top 10. Even you can find decent odds for top 30s and 40s on a traditional week, where this is a signature event. There's only an 80 player field. Those top 30s and top 40s aren't as lucrative. The return obviously isn't as promising, but yeah, so I definitely like Jason Day to top 20 range. Ben Griffin's another player that I targeted in the top 20 market just because his game is so well-rounded and he's sort of flirted with that position recently. Returning today, like his stats are off the track. He has 12 top 20s at Pebble and 16 appearances, right? So you're getting plus money on Jason Day for a top 20 finish at some sportsbooks. So it's definitely has my attention. And additionally, Straka is another player. He finished T7 here last year. He was second true strokes gained tee to green during that tournament. So again, has some comfort at the track. And he's a 2-time winner last year and one of the best ball strikers, tee to green players on tour. So definitely like that sort of style of player who doesn't necessarily need to dominate or take over the course off the tee, because historically that hasn't been the case at Pebble Beach. Last year was an outlier with Rory McIlroy sort of overpowering the track, but historically it's more of a precision off the tee, find the fairway, second shot golf course. And I think that will be the way that it plays out again this season.
Neil, we have about a minute left. Anything when you're looking at individual set or mano-a-mano 72-hole matchups?
Yeah, one that jumped out right away was, again, we're going back to Jason Day, but he's matched up with Harris English. And Harris English topped out with a top 40 here all the way back in 2012 or 2014. So he doesn't have the same level of course history or current form that I just kind of highlighted with Jason Day's excellent ball striking numbers of late. And then the second one would be Victor Hovland over Alexander Schauffele. Schauffele scuffled to start the season. Obviously, he can flip the script, no problem. He's one of the best in the world. But Hovland's been really dialed in across the past 6, 7, 10 events that he's played in with a lot of high finishes. So I like Hovland over Schauffele as well.
Neil Parker joining us here on Money Moves from Covers, getting you ready for the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Neil, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here on this Wednesday.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk some golf and have a great, rest of your show. And hopefully you enjoy the weekend action at Pebble Beach.
Let's win some wagers. Plenty more on Money Moves on the other side of the break here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back right here on Money Moves on this Wednesday afternoon. He is Marc. I am Ben. A thank you again to Neil Parker of Covers for making us all smarter ahead of the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am that begins tomorrow out in Pebble Beach, California. Marc, when you were listening to Neil, anything that he convinced you in terms of laying down a wager, or perhaps the name we did not bring up with him, our guy from the Great Garden State, Chris Goddard, up at a 30-1 price after winning at the WM Phoenix Open a week ago?
Yeah, I'm a big Jason Day guy, so I was happy to see him get the write-up that he did in Covers. And so I do think that he's got an opportunity. I think golf is great to bet on. First and foremost, number one, not every course suits every golfer's game, and you kind of have to dig down and do a little work. And in doing that work, man, you can find great value when you're going down the leaderboard a little bit. So when you're looking at Pebble Beach, and I thought Neil did a great job in terms of describing it's basically a second shot golf course, right? And how good is your short game and everything and the like. And we'll see how much weather comes into play. Obviously not a good weather forecast when you're looking at potentially the final round on Sunday. But Day's an intriguing one, especially at 45-1, 45, 46-1, wherever he is right now, depending on what book you're looking at. I think that's a tremendous value when you're looking at Jason Day. Another one that I like is I kind of like Victor Hovland at 27-1 and plus 280 to finish in the top 10 as well. Because when Victor's iron game is on point, he's one of the better iron players on the PGA Tour and worldwide. And I think you've seen that. Obviously, the worldwide stage, we saw him in the Ryder Cup for Team Europe. But when you look at him, he is yet to kind of put everything together for the majors. But I could see Victor Hovland having himself a good 4 days out there at Pebble Beach.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I like the approach as well of taking Victor Hovland in that head-to-head matchup with Xander Schauffele. There are so many different ways of betting an event on the PGA Tour. Of course, as we near major championship season starting about 2 months from now in Augusta, Georgia, it's not just betting a large price to win outright. There's top 10, there's top 20, there's the head-to-heads, there's three balls. There are so many different ways of approaching it where you can just say, hey, this guy's expected to have a good week, or hey, this course, this track fits his game very well, and find some profitability there. I would not recommend, although it seems likely, betting Scotty Scheffler at minus 270 to finish top 10. But hey, the juice is only juice if it does not cash. So you'll take a winning ticket at any time. But it always amazes me, Mark, to see a 3-to-1 price on a golfer before 72 holes of golf to be played in a 4-day tournament against the other best players in the world.
But you also look at it, Ben, if we could throw the odds boards up, look at the disparity. I mean, look at the disparity. Yeah. You have Scheffler at 3-to-1, and the next closest golfer is Rory at 14-to-1. And then it's Kim at 25-to-1. I mean, it just shows you the dominance of Scotty Scheffler. I agree with you. We're not here to go out there and say, yeah, you know what? Go out there and take Scotty Scheffler minus 270 to finish in the top 10 or plus 300 or 3-to-1 to win the tournament. I understand what you'd rather be cashing tickets than trashing tickets. I understand that. And no one's denying the dominance of Scotty Scheffler. And we haven't seen this kind of dominance since, Tiger Woods was in his prime. But right. And also, when you look at the odds boards, there's such a disparity between him and everybody else. And what you see on the odds boards is what we see on the golf course. And so would we all that be surprised Sunday night that Scotty Scheffler is the Pebble Beach Pro-Am champ? No. I mean, to be honest with you, but we're here to try and find some value and look at golfers to see where their game is, how their game fits the course. And I think what Neil ran through is you have to look at some of the empirical data historically of what golfers play this course particularly well, and I think that can help your handicap.
Yeah. I mean, so far this season, in 2 starts for Scotty Scheffler, the win at the American Express out in Palm Desert, a T3 finish last week in Scottsdale at the WM Phoenix Open. I was watching the end of that final round, all the drama with Hideki Matsuyama and Chris Gotterup playing in the playoff. Hideki had things in control until he did not. He is also 30-to-1 to win this week out at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Mark, if I may direct your attention, and if you don't want to talk about this, just let me know. But our Olympic hockey tournament on the men's side on the ice over in Milan Cortina now officially underway in the home nation in one of the first games of the men's hockey tournament out to an early lead. Italy, a hefty underdog today against Sweden, who is a medal contender. The Italians strike first, Mark, in the first 5 minutes of the opening period. They lead 1-0. They are still a 4.5-goal puck line underdog at this moment. Hefty dog, but Italy on top of the Swedes to start the men's hockey tournament out there in Milan.
Listen, I love hockey. Ben, I was talking about all 3 of my boys play hockey, right? We're going to be in Quebec next week for a big Pee Wee tournament. And, love the 4 nations that you had last year during the course of the All-Star break for the National Hockey League. And love the fact that you're going to have NHL players partake in here. Yeah, it's stunning. I mean, but do I expect that result to hold? I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised that this is all of a sudden going to be the Italians tournament to lose. But it is stunning. Mika Zibanejad, the Rangers on that Sweden team, has a number of NHL stars as well. But cavalcade of stars, I'm into it. I love Olympic hockey, even when it's just amateurs. I think it's fun. I think it's great. I think, the home for, if you're trying to find exactly where it is, I think USA Network is basically going to be the home for the men's hockey tournament for the majority of it, to be able to find it. I think the American team plays their first game tomorrow afternoon, right around 1 o'clock Eastern time, I believe is their first game on the board. So it's going to be a great tournament. I'm into it. I mean, Ben, I think it's great. I get into the Olympics. I'm not going to tell you I'm a curling expert or I can ski the moguls or ski jump or do any of this stuff. But, when you have it on in the background, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's great, and you can present some great betting opportunities as well.
I'm not the biggest hockey fan, Mark, but the 4 nations face-off last year to see Team USA versus Team Canada, one of the great international rivalries in all of sports, but certainly on the ice. was awesome. And I think everybody is hoping that we see that theater continue in the 2026 Winter Olympics. Yesterday, one of the great rivalries in women's hockey, Team USA thumping Canada in the preliminary round. Still probably the gold medal match, but Team USA handing the Canadians their worst loss at the Olympic Games in nearly 3 decades. 5-0 yesterday for the Americans. Just to say, if you want to lay 4.5 goals with Team Sweden right now, you can do so. It's a plus money at plus 125, trailing by a goal early against Italy. Marc, I do want to ask you mentioned Team USA starts its Olympic hockey journey tomorrow over in Italy. They're a 3.5 goal puck line favorite against Latvia. Canada plays in the game before against the Czech Republic. Do you anticipate it'll be the United States and Canada in the gold medal match when all is said and done?
I do. I mean, listen, they're off to an inauspicious start, but I think Sweden could have their voice heard. Finland could also is one of those teams that could have their voice heard. I think, I was watching one of the analysts talk about the fact that the Sweden-Finnish matchup and, there's a big time rivalry there. That's going to be one of the great matchups we see early on in this tournament. But I think when all is said and done, yes, Ben, long story short is I think we're going to get the United States. I think we're going to get Canada. And I think that would put a smile on Gary Bettman's face and for hockey fans' faces as well, because you get the theater, you get the drama, you get the rivalry. We saw it last year in the Four Nations. I don't think we're going to get the fights that we saw in the Four Nations here on the Olympic ice over in there in Milan, Italy. But I do think it would be great theater. And I do eventually think that's what we're going to get in the gold medal game.
Minus 2,400, the money line price on Team USA tomorrow against Latvia. Canada, a 2.5 goal favorite on the puck line against the Czech Republic. That's minus 550 in terms of the money line price. Sweden and Finland on Friday. That's going to be a really good game. Right now, Sweden minus 198 as the favorite to show a little bit more competitive balance there. Germany, not bad, Marc. They're probably not going to be a team that goes for gold, but they do have Leon Draisaitl, who is one of the best players in the National Hockey League, of course, up there in Edmonton. We'll talk a ton of everything that you need on this Wednesday. We've got some conversation around the NBA coming up, but again, a reminder for you. Every time you fill up your gas tank, you could be earning real cash back with the free Upside app. Just download Upside from the App Store or Google Play, claim an offer at a nearby station, and start earning instantly. With promo code SPORTS, you'll get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. Many drivers are earning $200 to $300 a year just from gas purchases they were already making. It's simple, it's fast, you can cash out anytime to your bank account or e-gift cards like Amazon. Download the free Upside app and use promo code SPORTS for your 25 cent per gallon bonus. Offers vary by user and location. See upside.com for details. We've got a 14-game slate in the association on this Wednesday. We're 2 days away from the All-Star break in Los Angeles. 14 games, so much to make sense of. We'll highlight those key matchups here on this Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves. Marc, we've got a great guest joining us up next in Raheem Palmer. Plenty to break down in the NBA.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, the association, we're rounding into form, get through the All-Star break, get me to the spring and the NBA playoffs, Ben. I can't wait.
That's when you know everybody is invested. But we'll give you some investments with Raheem Palmer on the other side of the break here on this Wednesday on Money Moves. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Right back here on Money Moves on this Wednesday afternoon. It's Ben Stevens and Marc Malusis with you the entirety of it, and we've got a 14-game NBA slate on the second to last day before the All-Star break in the association, as all eyes will turn to Los Angeles, California. So to get you ready for this monumental stretch that we have tonight and everything you need to know around the NBA, Raheem Palmer joins us now on the Progressive Guest Line here on Money Moves. Of course, you can see Raheem's great work with the Ringer, Spotify, FanDuel TV. Raheem, we appreciate the time. Thank you for being here on this Wednesday.
Thanks for having me. It's always an honor to be on VSiN, and it's great to meet and connect with you guys. So I'm excited.
Thanks so much, Raheem, as always. And of course, we are 1 week removed from the NBA trade deadline, following the Super Bowl, 2 days out from the NBA All-Star break. Raheem, maybe a crash course for everybody, paying a little bit more attention to the association right now. When you look at the future odds, the Thunder, a very short favorite. The Nuggets have that second best price in the Eastern Conference for the first time in a few years in the NBA, feels up in the air. What's the one thing, the main thing perhaps, that everybody should know as they get caught up with the NBA before the All-Star break?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is that if you look at the NBA over the last 7 or 8 years, we've always had a different champion. So this is not your grandfather's NBA. It's not your father's NBA. It's not even my NBA, because the NBA I grew up watching, you saw dynasties and guys who you just saw the same teams winning over and over. And you look at the Oklahoma City right now at plus 120. There is no value on that at all. I think you owe it to yourself to start playing some of these long shots. I mean, you look at the Indiana Pacers. They got to the NBA Finals last year, and nobody expected that. You go back the year before, you look at the Miami Heat. So you're constantly having these teams who no one expects to win, who has a shot to go to the finals. I think we're in the parity era of the NBA at this point in time. And, there's some interesting things, because it looks like Jason Tatum is starting to play 5-on-5 basketball. The Boston Celtics are 13-1. The Boston Celtics are having a tremendous season. Jaylen Brown looked like an MVP candidate. So if you get Jason Tatum back in the lineup, this could be a finals contender, especially when you consider that they traded for Vucevic at the deadline. So I'm looking at them. You look at a team like the San Antonio Spurs. They've been the kryptonite for the Oklahoma City Thunder at 14-1. So maybe you want to look at them. But then also you could look at a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know a lot of people say, all right, we're not going to trust James Harden when it comes to the postseason. But he is a clear upgrade over Darius Garland. You saw the other night against the Denver Nuggets. James Harden hits that clutch three, and they end up winning that game. That was a very gutsy win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I think the NBA is more wide open than it's ever been the last 7 years, and I think you need to approach the futures odds from that perspective. Even the Philadelphia 76ers, they're 40-1. Maybe you want to take a shot on them.
Raheem, I grew up a Knicks fan, and when they're good, we're like all Knicks fans. We come out of the woodwork, right? All of a sudden, everybody's a Knicks fan, right? You can't. When they're embarrassing, nobody tells you you're a Knicks fan. When they're good, everybody's a Knicks fan. What's your take on the Knicks' tough loss last night in overtime against Indiana? Now they're on the road in Philadelphia tonight. No OG for the Knicks. They're getting 2.5 against Embiid and company.
Oh, so it's a very, very tough loss against. I mean, you're looking at the Indiana Pacers. They're basically a tanking team at this point in time. And I think they find themselves in a really tough spot. I mean, you look at the New York Knicks. They played Detroit on Friday. They kind of punted that game. Then you go to Boston. You take the Boston Celtics into the deep waters and drown them. And then last night, you're an 11.5-point favorite at home against the Indiana Pacers, and you can't get it done. So now you got to take on the Philadelphia 76ers, and you look at the Philadelphia 76ers. They're 8-3 against teams on a back-to-back this year. I'm looking at this spot, and I know a lot of people are going to play the Philadelphia 76ers, but me personally, I'm going to play over on this total. If you look at the last 2 weeks, the New York Knicks, 7th in offensive rating, 120 points per 100 possessions. You look at the Sixers, 3rd in offensive rating, 122 points per 100 possessions. If Embiid is in this lineup, I think they're going to be able to score at will. I think that the Sixers, they're not really great at defending either. They're 21st in defensive rating over the last 2 weeks. So I'm looking for a lot of points in this game. I think my model puts this as around 231. So I think at 224, I'm in it to win it. I know a lot of people like the Sixers, and that's probably the sharp play here, but I'm going to go with the over.
Raheem Palmer joining us here on this Wednesday on Money Moves on the Progressive Guest Line, one of the best NBA handicappers that you will find. Follow his work, Spotify, Ringer, and at FanDuel TV. Raheem, a 14-game NBA slate. I want to direct your attention a little bit later tonight out in Phoenix, Arizona. The Suns hosting the Thunder. Now, the Thunder have the best record in the NBA. OKC is the reigning NBA champs. They've dropped 5 of their last 9 and have not looked picture perfect as we approach the All-Star break over the past few weeks or so. 6.5-point favorite for the Thunder tonight against the Suns in Phoenix. What's your read on this matchup?
Okay, I like the Phoenix Suns getting they're 6.5 now. Interesting.
Yeah,
I got +8. Wow. Yeah.
8.5. Excuse me, Raheem. I saw that.
I was about to say, yeah, I got 8.5 on that game. The biggest thing for here is you look at the Phoenix Suns. You're talking about a team that's 35-19 against the spread, best in the NBA, and they're taking on the Thunder team who are just 5-5 in their last 10 games, and now they're playing without SGA, and they're 3-2 without SGA with a net rating of plus 4.8 compared to plus 12.6 without him. This Suns team is a little bit of a regular season juggernaut. I mentioned that they have the best record against the spread in the NBA, but I just think they're being priced too heavily because they're on a back-to-back. And I think this is not a back-to-back to where you have to travel. This is a back-to-back at home. And if you look at some of the games against the Thunder, I mean, they played the Thunder pretty tough. You go back to November 28th, 119-123. You go back to Sunday, January 4th. They actually won against the Thunder. So I think this is a very winnable game for the Phoenix Suns. I like the Suns plus 8, plus 8.5. Maybe you sprinkle something on the money line because if you look at this Thunder team, without SGA, they clearly aren't the same team. And the one thing I'll say about the Thunder is that, and I've been saying this for quite a while, if the opposing team does not turn the ball over, they are very mortal, because they don't have a great half-court offense. And now you take SGA, basically 30 points a game out of your lineup. And what is that half-court offense? I mean, you look at that game against the Lakers on Monday night, the Lakers were neck and neck until the end. And then obviously the Thunder made a run and won 119-110. But as a whole, you going on the road, you playing the Phoenix Suns, I mean, it's going to be a tough game. Give me the Suns.
Raheem, anything that we haven't hit upon as of yet when you're looking at the slate tonight that you like?
I like the Hawks. I think it's a good revenge spot for the Hawks. They lost 126-119 against the Charlotte Hornets on Saturday. Now you meet again, and I know the Hornets, they had a 9-game winning streak snapped the other night, but unfortunately, now you're without Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate. They're about 2 points worse per 100 possessions with him off the floor defensively. So I just think this is a good revenge spot for the Hawks. The Hawks were neck and neck with the Hornets the other night on Saturday at home. Now you switch venues. You're missing 2 starters. I think the Hawks are live here, and that's why you're seeing this number come down. So I like the Hawks with the points, and maybe you sprinkle something on the money line.
The Hornets were looking for a franchise best 10 consecutive wins. Instead, it got a little bit rambunctious between Charlotte and Detroit. They came to it on the court in that game. Speaking of the Pistons, Raheem, really interesting matchup tonight in the 6 against the Raptors. They're actually a 1.5 underdog in Toronto against a Raptors team that has been pretty good this year. I want to ask you about Detroit. Currently a 5.5 game lead for that top spot in the Eastern Conference. What's the best thing about this Pistons team in 2025-26?
I mean, the best thing is obviously their defense. You're talking about a team which is second in defensive rating. So, obviously if you have and they also have a top 10 offense as well. So if you got a top 10 offense and a top 5 defense, that makes you a contender, especially in the Eastern Conference. But, the biggest thing for me is that I'm not sure how to approach them in the postseason because, typically younger teams don't necessarily, make that leap. They kind of have to earn their way. But I do think things are changing. So I'm kind of going to approach them on a series-by-series basis. They probably should have beat the Knicks last year in that series, but they just were too young and didn't have the experience. But, as a whole, you got a star in Cade Cunningham. So they have a shot. So I'm going to keep my eye on them, but I don't have any futures or anything on them at this point in time.
Raheem Palmer joining us here on this Wednesday on Money Moves from FanDuel TV, Spotify, and The Ringer as well. One of the best in breaking down the NBA all season long. Raheem, we appreciate the time, my friend. Thanks for being here on this Wednesday.
No doubt. Thanks for having me. Always an honor.
Thanks, Raheem.
Enjoy this 14-game slate in the association. And then, Marc, we're 2 days away from the NBA All-Star break. It always comes very fast. After the Super Bowl, if you're starting to pay attention to the NBA for the first time, you're like, whoa, we're already well past the halfway point of an 82-game regular season with the All-Star break 48 hours away.
Yeah, and then we could get into the cyclical conversation about the dunk contest every single year. I mean, which happens time and time and time again. You know the deal, Ben. You know where I'm going. What used to be, where it is now. What do you do to salvage it? That lasts for a good 72 hours.
Just wait till everybody watches NBA All-Star Sunday night and the change of format. More on VSiN up next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
One more segment to go for us here on Money Moves on this Wednesday. He is Marc Malusis. I am Ben Stevens. Before we go, with 14 NBA games in 54 D1 men's college basketball games on this Wednesday night, we'll give you some best bets, some top picks for this Wednesday as well. But Marc, a quick update in the Olympic hockey tournament starting on the men's side on this Wednesday. The host nation of Italy, trying to pull off one of the all-time stunners in Olympic hockey, took an early 1-zip lead over Sweden, booked as a hefty underdog entering the game. They are now trailing near the end of the opening period, about 20 minutes gone, 2-1, Sweden back on top. We mentioned that live puck line, 4.5 goals in favor of Team Sweden. It's still minus 4.5 for the Swedes, but it was once plus 24. Now you got to lay the juice at minus 175.
Yeah, Gabriel Landeskog, the member of the Colorado Avalanche, with the game-tying goal for Sweden. It was good early. I don't know how good it's going to be late for Italy, Ben. I'll be honest with you. But you know what? This is what makes the Olympics great. Slovakia with the 4-1 victory over Finland the game before that. We mentioned it. United States will be in action tomorrow afternoon. Canada will be the game before them. So it's going to be fun. This when you look at the Olympics, especially if you're a hockey fan as I am, you get into these international tournaments, especially when you have the professionals involved and the NHL players taking part.
NHL players playing in the Winter Olympic Games for the first time in over a decade since 2014. We are hoping for a rematch of last year's Four Nations face-off in the gold medal game between the United States and Canada. Team USA starts tomorrow. They're a 3.5-goal favorite on that puck line against Latvia. Team Canada also beginning its Olympic hockey journey in a matchup against the Czech Republic. 14 NBA games on this Wednesday, 54 in D1 men's college basketball. Let's talk a little bit of NBA here, Marc, before we go. Two games that I want to highlight. Really interesting one between the Pistons and the Raptors tonight in Toronto. Toronto, a slight favorite, laying 1.5. It's a couple of cents of difference on that money line. The Pistons are going to enter the All-Star break with a pretty hefty lead to win the Eastern Conference, or at least to be that top spot. They have a 5.5 game advantage right now, but not booked as the betting favorites out east. That's the Cleveland Cavaliers at a 3-1 price, followed by the New York Knicks, 20 cents back at plus 320. Again, Detroit and Toronto, you see it now, basically a money line tonight up in the Great White North. A really intriguing Pistons team that Raheem Palmer was breaking down with one of the best stars in the NBA in Cade Cunningham. I think they learned a lot from that 6-game opening round bout against the New York Knicks in last year's postseason.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any doubt. It seems to be the team that outside of the Detroit area that nobody really wants to believe in terms of, you mentioned about the betting market when you're looking at the Eastern Conference, and Pistons are really good. You mentioned about Raheem. We've discussed a little bit as well in terms of what Cade Cunningham's been able to do, what Detroit does defensively. They've got a lot of guys that, know their roles, do their job game in and game out. And I don't disagree with you. I do think they gained a lot from that series against the New York Knicks a year ago. And Cunningham's a special player that makes guys around him better. We thought he was going to be a superstar in the NBA. It took a little time for him to get there, but here he is. He has certainly arrived. And even though there are a lot of people that don't necessarily want to believe in Detroit, you feel the Pistons game in and game out, and come playoff time, as long as they stay healthy, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. I'm not telling you that that without a shadow of a doubt they're getting through the East. No, I do think even despite their lead, I do think Cleveland, if everything clicks, the Knicks, if they get their defense in order, we'll see what happens with Tatum and the Boston Celtics. The Philadelphia 76ers, does Joel Embiid, this version which you ran through, how statistically he's dominant he has been last 7 to 10 games, do you get that version come the NBA playoffs? Is he able to stay healthy? There'll be other teams in the mix, but Detroit knows who they are game in and game out, and they play that level and style of play really, really effectively.
Philly fifth best price to win the Eastern Conference right now. Joel Embiid and his Sixers, a 2.5-point home favorite tonight against the New York Knicks. The Knicks off that devastating OT loss as an 11.5-point home favorite inside Madison Square Garden last night against Indiana. JoJo has been the NBA's leading scorer basically over the last month, since the middle of January. He has scored 30-plus in 8 of the last 10 for the 76ers. For him to get to that 30-point threshold once again on DraftKings, a plus 115 price. We'll have a bet from Marc in that game in just a matter of moments. One more NBA game to highlight. The Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum, starting to get healthier. The Celtics have basically been the Eastern Conference favorite near a minus money price mark for the last 3 years. Not this year due to injury, but they're in that second spot, currently 5.5 back of those Detroit Pistons. 13.5-point home favorite against the Chicago Bulls tonight. I want to highlight the total in the mid-220s between the C's and the Bulls. Boston has played to the under in 9 straight games, 11 of its last 12, 14 of its last 16. You see that total there at 225 and a hook.
Yeah, and I would imagine you go to the under again with them playing host to the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls, one of the more befuddling teams in the NBA, Ben, based on what they did at the NBA trade deadline. You have no idea exactly what the direction the Chicago Bulls are going in, but that's not Boston's problem. They're a heavy favorite tonight at home, and they should be as they take on the Chicago Bulls. And you give Boston credit. We talked a little bit earlier on the show. You look at Indiana, no Halliburton. Even though they kind of, whenever they see the Knicks, they play their best basketball. They've been one of the worst teams in the NBA so far this season. You look at the Boston Celtics, I understand they still have Jaylen Brown, who's playing to an MVP caliber, but Mazzulla and company have done a nice job of circling the wagons at the end, throughout the course of the season, even without Tatum, out with that ruptured Achilles. Maybe they get him back come playoff time. Maybe that provides a little bit of a carrot for this team to go out there and chase, because if they're able to get some version of Jason Tatum back in what is a wide open Eastern Conference, that's going to make that Boston team, really, really dangerous. But they've done a nice job here through 53 games of playing 15 games above 500. I would imagine they get themselves to 16 games above 500 and do it decisively tonight at home against Chicago.
Plus 380 for Boston, fourth best number to win the Eastern Conference crown. Our second to last day of NBA action before the All-Star break this weekend in Los Angeles. And you can get ready to win a larger-than-life World Soccer Championship experience only at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. One lucky winner scores a 2-night stay at Circa, a VIP cabana for the games at Stadium Swim with $500 in credit plus $250 in food and beverage. Arrive in style with limo transportation and celebrate with cocktails at Legacy Club. Enter now and kick off the World Soccer Championship at Circa Resort and Casino. For giveaway details, visit circalasvegas.com. Marc, I've got some buddies going out to Vegas for conference tournament title weekend in college basketball in early March. I told them, make sure you are reserving a spot at Stadium Swim, one of the great places to watch sports there at the Circa Sportsbook in downtown Sin City. All right, before we go, let's talk some best bets for this Wednesday night. Marc's got one in the NBA and a top pick in college basketball as well. Marc, what do you like on the board on this Wednesday?
Yeah, let's start with the association, Ben, because continue that kind of momentum. I'm going to take the Knicks plus the 2.5. Raheem kind of highlighted the sentiment, the thoughts a little bit previous segment when he joined us. And the Knicks coming off that tough loss at home last night in overtime against the Indiana Pacers. Now they go on the road in Philadelphia. They're getting 2.5 points against the Philadelphia 76ers. OG Anunoby's not going to give it a go. I think the Knicks are going to show themselves, and I think it's going to be an interesting test to see after that kind of a loss as a decided favorite against Indiana to see how they perform tonight in Philadelphia. I think they perform well. I'm going to take the Knicks plus the 2.5. As far as college basketball goes, we talked about this, Ben, in the opening hour, and you did a great job of setting it up. I'm going to take Georgia tonight plus the 9.5. A rematch of a game that we saw last month that went Florida's way, 92-77. Georgia's home. They're getting 9.5 at home. I'm going to take them plus the points against the Florida Gators. Two up-tempo teams. I think you're going to get a lot of points. I dabble with the over as well, but give me the Bulldogs plus the 9.5.
92-77 in Gainesville. That's 169 total points. That pregame total was 173 and a hook. It stayed under tonight's total at Stegman Coliseum in Athens, down by nearly double digits at 164 and a half. Mark, I've got one college basketball bet. It's one of the first of our 54 games on this Wednesday evening in Big Ten country, if you want to call College Park, Maryland, that. The Terps are not very good. They're a 2-win team in conference play this year. Ben McCollum and his Iowa Hawkeyes, though, really good. 18-5 overall this season. Winners of 6 straight in Big Ten action in a lethal and tenacious defense that has held all 23 opponents below their season average entering that game. I'm looking at the Terps. I'm looking at limited possessions. I'm looking at not many points. And I'm looking at Maryland team total under 63.5 points. We'll cape to the under for the Terps tonight. Mark, it was a pleasure working with you on this Wednesday. Awesome stuff, my man. Hope we get to do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Great job. Pleasure is all mine. And good luck with all your plays and good luck with all of our audience's plays. And thanks for being with us for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun here on this Wednesday, but make sure you stay tuned after Money Moves. Follow the money with Stormy Bonantoni and Jonathan Von Tobel starts next here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.